let's get straight to our top story. Donald Trump overnight in snowy Grand Rapids, Michigan, his first visit on his ongoing thank you tour to one of the so-called blue wall states that delivered his campaign that surprise victory in November.
This morning, the president-elect's transition team finding itself in a war of words with America's intelligence agencies. Now, these agencies, according to two new published reports, have concluded that Russia was deliberately working to sway the election towards Trump through its hacking.
We've got team coverage of this story this morning. We're going to start with ABC's Mary Bruce, who's right there at the White House. Mary, good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, for months, the U.S. government has suspected that Russia intentionally interfered with the U.S. presidential election, intentionally hacking into emails from the DNC and those close to Hillary Clinton. But this morning, intelligence agencies have reportedly concluded that Russia intended to do far more than just meddle. This morning, the Washington Post reporting that a secret CIA report found Russia interfered in the U.S. election to help Donald Trump win the White House. Individuals connected to the Russian government reportedly provided WikiLeaks with hacked emails as part of a wider Russian operation to boost Trump and hurt Clinton's chances.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
And the New York Times reporting intelligence agencies found Russia also hacked the RNC, but did not release whatever information they gleaned from the Republican networks. Overnight, Trump's transition team was swift to respond, questioning the credibility of the CIA. In a statement saying these are the same people that said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
I mean, it could be Russia, but it could also be China. It could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay? You don't know who broke in to DNC.
Intelligence agencies ultimately concluded that Russia was behind the hacking, but Trump has repeatedly shrugged it off.
U.S. intelligence agencies believe the Russians are behind that leak. Why don't you believe it?
I don't know if they're behind it, and I think it's public relations, frankly.
Negotiating relations with Russia will be a challenge for Trump's next Secretary of State. Rudy Giuliani, once a top contender, has taken himself out of the running.
I saw that he had so many good candidates available. I mean, there was no reason to complicate his life any longer.
In a statement, Trump said Giuliani is and continues to be a close personal friend. Mitt Romney and ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson are still among the contenders for Secretary of State, but Giuliani's making clear he thinks Romney should be off that list.
My advice would be Mitt went just a little too far. You can make friends and make up, but I would not see him as a candidate for the cabinet.
And this morning, Trump is already tweeting, praising Giuliani as one of the finest people he knows. Now, here at the White House, there's no comment this morning on Russia's involvement in the election, but President Obama's made clear he wants to get to the bottom of this. He's already ordered a full review of the hacking, says he wants a report before he leaves office next month. Dan and Paula.
All right, Mary, so many questions for that. We want to bring in two of our ABC News contributors. We've got Colonel Stephen Ganyard, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State who's in Washington. Also with us, political analyst Matthew Dowd, who is in Austin, Texas. Okay, guys, where do we begin? But let's begin with these intelligence reports. Steve, let's start with you. What do you make of these reports that Russia was specifically trying to help Trump? Is this conclusion credible?
Paula, I think there's really nothing new in this report that we're seeing. Much of this was put out by the DNI back in October. What is new is that apparently the intelligence community has come to some conclusion here that the Russians were favoring Mr. Trump. So I don't think that there's any doubt that the Russians interfered with U.S. democracy. But the real question is, what did it do and how did it influence the outcome of the election?
Matt, what's your take on Trump's response here? He said these are the same people that said Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Does he have a point here?
Well, it's an amazing response from not only an American, but from an American who's president-elect. He's basically attacking the CIA in order to defend Vladimir Putin and Russia in this. And keep in mind that Russia has been a rival of ours nearly as long as the Army-Navy game in this. But for a sitting president-elect to attack a U.S. agency to defend Russia is quite an amazing situation.
So, Steve, if it's true that the Russians deliberately intervened in this way, what really can the U.S. do about it?
Well, in some ways, Paul, the horse is out of the barn. But there are things that they can do. They can go back and using cyber forensics, they can determine if there were particular individuals involved. I think in the past we've seen where the U.S. has actually indicted Chinese hackers by name who have been stealing IP from the United States. So they can do this sort of name and shame. The U.S. also has very sophisticated capabilities in terms of offensive cyber hacking, but that's a big Pandora's box that gets opened. And so apparently the Clinton or the Obama administration knew about this a few months ago and has yet to do anything about it. So the real question is, what does the commander-in-chief think about this now? This is really on his watch.
It's a huge Pandora's box, because if you counterattack, there will be responses, and then you're going to have to respond to the responses, and it can spiral out of control very quickly. Matt, though, let me switch subjects just for a second here. While we have you, let's talk about this news that Rudy Giuliani is out of the running for Secretary of State. As Mary Bruce mentioned a minute ago, Trump is tweeting about it this morning, saying Giuliani is one of the finest people I know, end quote. So who's left in the hunt for this job now?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of a Seinfeld episode with George Costanza saying, wait, you can't break up with me, I'm breaking up with you. I think Donald Trump broke up with Rudy Giuliani long before Rudy Giuliani said, take me out of this. We've seen that in the reports over the last few weeks in this. I think it leaves only a few candidates. The reports are that Mitt Romney has fallen way down, and I think if you were going to do Mitt Romney, you were going to do him weeks ago. It looks like it's settling on probably somebody like Rex Tillerson, the chairman or former head of Exxon, which is interesting since the beginning of this conversation. He has a very close relationship with Russia and Vladimir Putin as well. So another complicating factor in this.
One last question to touch on. You know, we learned this week that Trump's going to stay on as executive producer of Celebrity Apprentice, but Newt Gingrich is now even saying that that's a weird decision. But Trump tweeting this morning, quote, I have nothing to do with The Apprentice except for the fact that I conceived it with Mark Burnett, and have a big stake in it. We'll devote zero time. Matt, is this issue likely to dog him?
Yes, this issue and many. I think, Paula, as we've talked, and you and Dan have talked, I don't think the policies are ultimately going to be problematic for Donald Trump. I think it's the potential conflicts of interest that continue to surround Donald Trump. And this is another one. He is going to get a monthly check from NBC and The Apprentice while he is president of the United States. That's going to present a series of issues that he's going to have to deal with in the course of his presidency.
Matthew Dowd and Colonel Steve Ganyard, our thanks to both of you this morning.